I've been texting for probably about
since
6
I
or
was
7
in
years.
year
so
9. That's roughly about
8
since
years
I was
now?
I've been texting
14,
since about the age
15.
of about,
I've been texting
I'd say
since
around
about
13 to 14 years old.
13 years old.
Yeah, I reckon the same. I text constantly. I'm always on my phone, like all the time. In lectures, everything. I text a lot throughout the day.
But I'd say maybe 50 to 100 times text a day.
I text every time I pick up my phone.
I'd probably say on average I text around 80 to 100 times a day.
Probably every hour, every minute of the day.
I only text about 20 times a day max.
I'll text about 10, 15.
So probably about 50 times a day.
I mostly text friends, occasionally family, sometimes work colleagues.
I text my friends, my sister.
Mostly friends.
Family, I text, use it for group work.
Mainly family.
Yeah, text family.
Friends, girlfriends, family.
Friends, family, for convenience.
A lot of people prefer to text than call because if you're texting, you can do other stuff whilst you're texting, if that makes sense. If you're on a phone call to someone, unless you've got earphones in, it's very difficult to do other stuff and multitask.
I choose to text instead of call because I find phone calls can be sometimes quite awkward.
Over text, I could be more confident in what I'm going to say.
Personally, I don't like calling people just because I don't have time to just sit on the phone for like ages, whereas texting you can just always go back to it.
You get more nervous when you're speaking, so you can just text them and say what you want to say.
The positives of texting, you could just reply whenever you want. You don't have to reply immediately, like if it was a phone call.
You don't really need the physical presence of the person to get where you want.
So that you can do it in your own time, you can still get your point across.
It's quick, it's easy, it's simple. And texting nowadays is free.
If I was going on a night out and mum's like text me, oh, when are you coming home? Just one message to her and like she'll feel like at ease.
You don't have to engage in long conversation with people to get what you want.
Texting I think has a bad impact on social skills.
They won't even need to go out the house to see people or socialise. I think that could be a negative.
I think that it has affected their grammar skills because they constantly use text language.
Certain people can get really mixed up.
People don't get their point across. Like one thing you can write something and then it means something completely different.
It limits what you could say to a person.
It depends how often they text. Like obviously, they could text and then be fine in a social situation as well. But I think if they're reliant on that, then that is a negative thing.
When I'm with my group of friends, I do feel a bit distracted if your phone's going off, and I don't like it when they're with me and their phone keeps going off. I always said before I had my car that I'd never text and drive, but I do, and always text in class or LRC, or when you're trying to do an assignment, if your phone's going off, you just can't help but look and want to reply, so it's a massive distraction.
Even though I don't like to do it, I'll do it unconsciously.
My life without texting would be, I think it would be boring.
Like some people might find it lonely because even when you're texting someone, you're still talking.
People would have to work on their conversational skills.
On the other hand, you might be able to get on with more stuff.
I see society being very closed off from physical interaction.
My social skills would have to improve, definitely.